A very warm and delightfully calm good morning to all of our listeners across the valley. Audrick Cashmere here, bringing you the heartbeat of Moonhaven Falls. Now, before we get to the main news, I would like to extend a very brief personal apology to anyone near the South Square Bakery this morning. If you happen to witness a dozen freshly baked cinnamon rolls hovering roughly 6 foot off the ground and slowly migrating toward the river, please be assured the situation was very swiftly contained. We are told the pastry chef has reclaimed the majority of them, though a few are still regrettably adrift toward the lower falls. This appears to be just another delightfully quirky symptom of the minor background buzz in our local ley lines, which we have been experiencing today. While we do expect these phenomena to be short-lived, Alara Meadowlight, understandably, doesn't have an exact timeline. She does, however, assure us here at the station it's merely a harmless spell of magical static, a momentary itch in the weave, if you will. She does, however, advise extra caution for anyone attempting light illusion work or enchanted domestic chores for the next day or two. That said, we have received a steady trickle of reports regarding a few more obvious and growing incidents around town. Now, I'm told some of these static surges have proven to be rather convenient. A number of townfolk near the market district report their evening gowns shifting through a vibrant spectrum of color entirely on their own. Free wardrobe refresh, courtesy of the atmosphere. And of course, over in the West Ward, we have had some rather extreme reports of domestic efficiency. Kitchen sinks washing their own crockery, and tavern brooms sweeping up the floorboards without a single hand on the handle. Delightful? Absolutely! A sign to keep your enchanted items on a short leash until the ambient mana settles? Almost certainly. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Crystal Network.
Good morning, Moonhaven Falls. Let's get straight to the parchment today, shall we? If any of you practicing arcanists have noticed the slight twitch in your spellcasting this morning, rest assured the world is not ending. The ley lines are simply undergoing a rather energetic surge. If last week was a quiet breeze, today feels like a tiny, persistent insect buzzing directly inside my left horn. It is mildly irritating. Now, I am well aware that none of you down in the valley have caused this sudden magical vibration. It seems to be a natural phenomena of the plateau, and I, of course, am far too civilized to take my minor discomfort out on mortals who are simply trying to bake bread and tend cattle. I am fine. Everything is fine. The answers to last week's riddles are a skeleton, dust, a leaf, rust, ivy, salt, and will-o'-the-wisp, or a corpse candle, if you prefer. However, as I sit here waiting for the currents to settle, my mind has naturally turned toward things that sting and prickle and strain and burn, simple, sharp little realities of the world. Let us see if your minds are quick enough to clear this scroll off my desk before my patience requires a brief intermission. Question 1. I am a tiny red insect, born from the strike of iron against flint. I leap through the air with a hungry bite, living for but a single heartbeat. Yet, if I land in dry straw, I can grow to a roaring monster that will consume a town. What am I? The first of 7 sharp little hurdles. Please take them to Timmy. Answer them quickly, if you please. I have a mountain to walk off while I wait for these ley lines to behave themselves again. Until next week, Moonhaven, do try not to irritate each other.
Good day, Moonhaven Falls. I'm Selene Meadowlight, and this is the Magic Minute. We begin at the Arcane Academy, where the peaceful quiet of the last week has turned out to be a complete illusion. Following the administration's decision to institutionalize taplight production, our first and second year students have spent 6 days in very suspicious, eerie silence. No explosions, no stray elemental summonings, no runaway saw blades. Then, of course, came Sunday morning. In what can only be described as a masterpiece of passive-aggressive magical logistics, the underclassmen collectively cast a massive, delayed trigger animate objects charm on the entire campus. At precisely dawn, every single broom, mop, feather duster, and scrub brush in the castle grounds stood up and began systemically cleaning the academy. The trouble, of course, is that a first year's definition of clean is entirely literal. The brooms didn't just sweep the floors, they swept papers off the dean's desk, the chalk off the lecture boards mid-sentence, and forcibly ushered 3 senior professors out of the building because they contained excessive dust. The administration's retaliation was rather swift. The underclassmen have been sentenced to 3 weeks of non-magical manual groundskeeping under the strict supervision of the very brooms that they enchanted. Meanwhile, our senior class is having a much harder time. They are currently attempting to install the castle's new water tower filtration system for Lord Kendrick. They thought the project was nearly complete, only for thousands of contracted water shigwas to suddenly become agitated. The seniors are now spending 18-hour shifts performing soothing harp solos and offering tiny morsels of candied fruit just to keep the elemental spirits from going on strike and turning the castle's bathwater to mud. This, of course, brings us to the artifact of the day, an item that would certainly make all that manual groundskeeping at least a bit more comfortable. The boots of the halfling!
Oh dear. Oh, those are a classic piece of mischievous transmutation. When attuned, these leather boots grant the wearer natural agility of the small folk, right? Specifically halfling nimbleness, allowing you to slip through the space of any creature larger than you, as well as the lightfoot ability to naturally hide behind larger allies.
Yes, however, the boots do carry a very visible curse. The moment you attune them, your physical height shrinks by 25%, and the boots visually transmute your lower legs to look like bare, unshod, and exceptionally hairy halfling feet.
And you can't take them off again without the remove curse spell, correct? Honestly, though, the upsides are fantastic for what they do. The enchantment keeps your actual feet fresh, clean, and warm, regardless of whether you're trudging through swamp muck or frozen mud. Granted, it's a bit embarrassing at formal galas, but for a wilderness ranger, that is absolute luxury.
That is true, Audrick. Now let's turn our focus to the inflexible threads. Today we address the strict spiritual boundary of personal power, the law of attunement.
So, I'm really hot and cold on this one, Selene. I understand the baseline logic, right? Some magical items are so powerful, so deeply tied to the weave that you can't just pick them up and instantly know how to use them. I get it. You gotta spend a short rest period bonding with the item's spirit, learning its quirks, harmonizing your personal mana to its matrix. I can see it.
That's a very rare admission of cosmological logic from you, Audrick.
Yes, but where the law completely loses me is the hard limit of 3. The universe has apparently decreed that no mortal mind, regardless of how powerful or heroic or in tune they are with the items they have, may attune more than 3 items at one time. So if I'm wearing a pair of magical boots, a cloak of protection, and a ring of swimming, and I find a marvelous headband of the intellect, the universe forces me to break my bond with one of the first 3 just to use the new one, despite the fact that I have already figured out its quirks, and they are now as natural to me as breathing.
That's because mental resonance is required to sustain those magical bridges, and is intensely draining, Audrick. Overloading your spiritual field could shatter your mind.
Nonsense. Using a magical item's like riding a bicycle. Once you learn how to balance on the thing, your body remembers it. Okay, sure, if you haven't worn your cloak of elven kind in 6 months, maybe you're a bit rusty when you put it back on. Maybe you suffer a momentary disadvantage for the first 6 or 12 seconds while you remember which mental lever to pull, but an absolute hard limit of 3? Why can't a veteran warrior who spent 30 years on the battlefield handle 4 items. Why does a legendary Archmage have the exact same capacity for attuned gear as a farm boy who picked up his first magical dagger and boots yesterday? It feels like a very arbitrary restriction to me, like it was invented by some cosmic clerk who doesn't want to balance heavy math equations.
Well, the weave is a delicate ecology, Audrick. If mortals could attune to a dozen artifacts at once, you'd have walking gods strolling the streets of Moonhaven, tearing the fabric of reality apart just by walking past a metallic fence. The limit of 3 preserves the balance, or so I'm told. It forces you to make choices.
It forces me to leave all my cool rings in my backpack. That's what it does.
Well, choose your gear wisely, do keep your elemental workers happy, and if a broom offers to sweep your front porch, maybe it's time to politely decline. This has been Selene Meadowlight with the Magic Minute.
Welcome to you, venerable high strategists and iron marchers. A courteous nod to the heralds and the envoys, a polite wave to the masons and the glassblowers, and the citizens of all walks of life, here in the Lost Realms. Welcome back to Crossroads Chronicles. I am your host, Audrick Cashmere. Tonight, we are taking a moment to look toward the shadow of the Serpent's Tooth Mountains. As many of our listeners know, the valley came dangerously close to catastrophe a few weeks back when the water table began rising at an alarming rate. It was the brave intervention of local adventurers who put the legendary Zaratan back to sleep, and the quick thinking and magical acumen of the local mages that allowed us to weather the following flood. But it turns out we were not the only ones watching that giant stir. Tonight, joining me by the fountain, is a diplomat from a community long hidden beneath our very soil, a representative of the Formian subterranean colony. Please welcome the envoy. I'm sorry. Do you have a name I can use?
Greetings, Audrick Cashmere. Greetings, citizens of the surface. My posture communicates non-aggression and calculated intent. The thermal output of this water fixture is agreeable to my segment joints. The Queen conveys that you may refer to me as Envoy Xeris, if you would like.
Well, I'm glad you find the square comfortable, Envoy Xeris. Now, to say your appearance in Moonhaven Falls was a bit of a surprise would be an understatement. You are, biologically speaking, rather unique compared to the rest of your kin, are you not?
Correct. I am a specialized vector. My genetic strain was deliberately engineered by the Nest architects to possess a bipedal humanoid geometry. This structural compromise was deemed necessary to facilitate friction-free ocular and vocal interaction with other folk. You odd beings who somehow exist outside a hive. My appearance is designed to minimize your fight or flight endocrine spikes.
Well, it certainly keeps us on our toes. Now, Xeris, tell us how your colony first took notice of Moonhaven Falls.
3 cycles ago, our tunnel borers were establishing deep structural galleries near the base of the mountain range that you designate as the Serpent's Tooth. Suddenly, a localized hydrostatic pressure increased by 412.135%. The subterranean Zaratan awoke and began thrashing against the mountain outside of our tunnels. The Council of Evaluators engaged in a rather lengthy debate. Such an entity's movement was threatening to collapse our lower chambers, flood the nursery levels, and worse, could endanger the Queen herself.
An existential threat to your entire civilization? Why didn't you surface then?
Intervention carries risk. We observed the beast battling with the unthinking hunger, what you call a behemoth. We were content to allow it to fight in our place, as we ourselves had only a 9.423% chance of emerging victorious against both foes. After the fight, we saw your surface champions lulling the Zaratan back into its deep slumber. We calculated their probability of success at 38.414%, with the number of attackers. Those numbers were less than optimal. We interceded where we could, thinning the monsters. Our assistants brought their odds of success up to only 49.729%. Luckily, they exceeded expectations. The Zaratan slumbers. The water table has stabilized, with the rivers returning to their beds. Following this success, the Queen decreed that your species possessed a sufficient technical utility and social cohesion to warrant formal diplomatic contact.
And I understand that Lord Kendrick has formally granted permission for your people to enter the Valley settlement zones?
That is correct. Lord Kendrick has issued a restricted passage permit, allowing small designated Formian trade scouts to observe nearby towns. We seek trade items of many types, and, in return, offer high-grade ore, purified subterranean mineral salts, and precision excavation and construction services.
Well, that sounds like a mutually beneficial arrangement. I do have to ask, though, what brought you to Crossroads Chronicles specifically tonight?
The Queen. She has developed a high-priority interest in the Crystal Network. One of our scouts happened upon a dropped crystal which had been tuned to pick up your broadcasts. They come quite clearly through the bedrock. She finds your local news reports and weather updates and the human social squabbles to be highly entertaining. She personally directed me to speak to you to deliver 3 explicit declarations on behalf of the colony.
Okay, I'm honored and slightly terrified. What are the 3 declarations, Envoy?
First, we are nearby. Second, we welcome trade and neighborly economic integration. Third, we will defend our nest with absolute lethal efficiency, if provoked. However, overall, we are determined to be good neighbors, if for no other reason than the Queen wishes to maintain her entertainment schedule uninterrupted.
Well, we certainly wouldn't want to disrupt Her Majesty's crystal time. Now, for those who might be nervous about insectoid neighbors like yourselves, there's this common conception here in Moonhaven that Formians operate as a hive mind. Is that accurate?
No, that is incorrect. All Formians are sentient individual units. However, only a specialized tier, such as myself, are sapient. We do not possess a forced hive mind, but rather a shared mental bandwidth. Think of it not as instant total knowledge, but as an expert standing just over my shoulders at all times, offering real-time tactical and linguistic advice. Right now, 3 nest architects are suggesting I complement your velvet doublet. It is a surprisingly aesthetically harmonious choice with your epidermis and folliculatus pili, Audrick Cashmere.
Oh, my hair! Oh, well, thank you! And thank the architects! Envoy Xeris, thank you very much for bringing word of the colony. Welcome to Moonhaven Falls, and we look forward to peaceful trade.
May your domiciles remain structurally sound, Audrick Cashmere. The colony is watching and listening.
And isn't that a comforting thought to end the hour on? That was Envoy Xerus of the Formian Colony. You're listening to Crossroads Chronicles here on the Crystal Network.
Good afternoon, Moonhaven Falls. Timmy this week here, bringing you the latest job listings straight from the Green Unicorn Center Board. The sky is clear, the lemonade is nice and cool, and the valley's economy is churning right along. Though the churning might be given what's wandering in the streets today. Between the local economic boom, the shifting wildlife down in the swamp, and the new trade agreements taking shape beneath our feet, there is plenty of gold waiting for anyone with a strong arm, a sharp mind, or just a very sturdy pair of boots. Let's dive into this week's Adventurer's Call! First up is some entry-level stuff. The solo contracts are for a quick coin, minimal lethality, high potential for a mess. The job title is wrangling the street sweepers cubes. The reward is 35 gold pieces. Most of you know our town's resident gelatinous cubes are usually keeping the streets immaculate by quietly dissolving dropped apple cores and stray garbage. However, ever since the recent surge of ambient magic hit, a few of them have become, rowdy and aggressive. They've actually been chasing stray chickens, engulfing market carts, and backing shopkeepers into doorways. Our town needs them wrangled, salted down to their manageable size, and guided back to their designated drainage alleys. I'd say the best class for this one is a ranger or a monk. You need high dexterity and movement to avoid getting cornered or engulfed yourself. A ranger with high skill in animal handling, or just a good understanding of monster behaviors, can lure them using organic bait, while a monk's lightning-fast reflexes let them to prod repeatedly and dodge the acidic jelly without melting their boots. Let's see, next up is a mid-tier job. An academic escort. High chances of combat, zero tolerance for missing students. The job title is the Shadowfen Component Harvest. The reward is a pretty good yield of 450 gold pieces and a discount on enchantment vouchers. With several new species of fauna and flora recently confirmed in the Shadowfen, a group of graduate-level students from the Mage College are heading into the marsh to harvest the rare plant and monster components for high-level enchanting. They are bright, enthusiastic, and either excessively trigger-happy or potentially useless in the real fight. The assignment posting explicitly notes that violence is highly probable, as you escort them into a territory of these new documented swamp beasts. I would say the recommended party size for this one is 3. You definitely are going to want a frontliner. I'd say fighter or barbarian. The swamp beasts won't wait for the students to finish their field notes. You definitely want a guide, probably a druid or a ranger, mostly because navigating the Shadowfen requires high wisdom and knowledge of the wilds to avoid natural hazards like sinkholes, but more importantly to spot incoming predators before they smell the students' alchemy kits. And finally, I'd probably recommend a field medic, either a cleric or paladin. When a graduate student inevitably touches a plant they shouldn't or gets nipped by a venomous creature, you probably need immediate poison neutralization and healing on tap, so the expedition doesn't end in academic tragedy. Finally, a high-level one, like this one, diplomatic freight duty. Strict professionalism required. This job titles it is Operation Formian Freight Line. The reward is 2,800 gold pieces and trade priority tokens. Now that's a good deal. Following our recent contacts with the subterranean Formian Hive, the major shipment of unnamed ore is being traded directly from the Hive's tunnels up to Lord Hendrick's castle on the plateau. Now this is a joint defense contract. You will be guarding some heavy wagon alongside the contingent of Formian warrior Myrmidians. The catch is that you need to have a genuine tolerance for Formians. This is strictly required. These intelligent insectoid beings operate on absolute hive logic. They communicate via telepathic contact and pheromone releases, and have zero patience for mammal sentimentals. You don't have to like them, but you must remain strictly professional. Follow the route protocol and refrain from stepping on their toes, figuratively or literally. You are likely to run into one or more of the following: a subterranean ambush, the scent of raw, unrefined, possibly magical ore will attract deep-dwelling horrors like umber tusks or bullets, attempting to cave in tunnels and devour the hull. When you leave the tunnels, you also have a chance of surface interceptions. Surface-level opportunistic raiders or rival factions who don't want Lord Hendrick getting his hands on these metals will likely attempt to block the plateau pass and waylay or redirect to the cavern. Ideally, you probably want a coordinator like Bard or Sorcerer for high-level charisma and discipline. You will likely need a party leader with exceptional mental composure to handle the cross-species logistics, mediate any misunderstandings between human wagons and Formian warriors, and keep the column moving. Someone with heavy defense. These warriors are known to anchor sides of the supply wagons and to hold the line against massive subterranean beasts or bandit warriors. Someone capable of area control like wizard or druid, using spells like Wall of Thorns, Wall of Stone, Entangle, or Fireball to keep the narrow tunnel choke points clear of when ambushes try to strike the convoy. And finally, a recon scout. I'd personally recommend a rogue or ranger, someone who can range slightly ahead of the Formian point guards, checking for cave-ins, tripwires, pit traps, or hidden surface archers along the plateau climb. That's it for Adventurous Call this week. Once again, I'm Timmy Thistlewick, and you're listening to the Crystal Network.
And that, my lords and ladies, wraps up another venture into Moonhaven Falls. As always, brand new stories arrive every Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern, and if today's broadcast brought a little humor to your day, maybe helped you unwind, perhaps even gave you a spark of creative inspiration, please take a quick moment to subscribe, maybe leave us a rating, share this episode with someone you know. It's the best way to keep the almighty algorithm happy, and make sure our airwaves stay loud and clear. To our amazing community, my family and I can't thank you enough for tuning in week after week. Your support means the absolute world to us, and if you'd ever like to send a little bit of extra fuel our way, throwing a monthly iced coffee or cold chocolate milk into the creative tank helps keep us going strong. I hope to see you all down in the comments, and until next week, take care, stay safe, and please, in this weather, keep cool.